strict parents can turn their kids into more effective liars, because children who are afraid to tell the truth learn more deceptive behaviors to avoid getting in trouble. Set reasonable rules and expectations for your child, reward positive behavior, and accept mistakes as a chance for learning. Yes, that's me. I didn't even feel bad about lying. It was the only way of handling certain situations when I grew up. Funny is, my dad would still always be like, you can tell me anything. Well, no. You can tell me anything. I mean, you're going to be in a ton of trouble, but you can still tell me. We are trying that with our son right now. If he lies, he gets in trouble, but he still has to face some consequences for his actions regardless, because, well, they were his actions. But we make it a huge point to make sure he knows that telling us the truth is always the better option. It's tough to balance as a parent. Sometimes it feels like no matter what decision you make, it's gonna be the wrong one, lol. Yeah, I think that's a good strategy with your son. Consequences are good because kids shouldn't just get away with murder scot-free. I think more important is to use it as a teaching moment. Why was what he did wrong? And why does it affect people so much that there needs to be consequences? If he can answer that and really understand why, then you've succeeded. Preach. If you can remember how scary it was as a kid when an adult was angry at you, you'll remember that in certain moments you would have said anything to avoid getting scolded. It's just like torture. People will say anything to make the torture stop. When I was a kid and my angry parents confronted me about something, my mind defaulted to tell them exactly what you think they want to hear, so they don't get mad. Truth has nothing to do with it. It's about protecting yourself. Yeah, even now, I just say okay to avoid trouble. To this day, my dad still yells a lot. My dad's wife just said to not be angry with him, and that he has a different way of thinking and behaving than us. I'm working with my therapist on fixing my issues from childhood. My opinion is that some people just really shouldn't be parents. Kids need a lot more than food, water, and shelter. That's why I don't get angry with them. Frustrated, yes. Annoyed all the time. But I don't yell, curse, or get out of control. I want them to be able to control their behavior and outbursts, and I can't do that if I can't lead by example. Yeah, my mom wasn't strict, and I shared everything with her. Instead, she just set reasonable rules, allowed me to argue for what I believed was fair, and discussed things with me open and honestly. If I could convince her a rule didn't make sense, it would be changed. It was fair, and it taught me a lot about things like conflict resolution and open communication. I'm a child-free teacher. I decided that I don't want to be a parent if I were going to be a teacher, and I have been teaching for about 5 years. If you had to ask me what is the most important thing I have learned so far, it would be telling my students this: don't ever lie to me. It doesn't matter what you did, I will not get angry at all, no matter how much I want to. And in fact, I will help you fix the problem. My students are more communicative, have become better problem solvers, and rarely, if ever anymore, utilize lying. I have been doing this for 2 years, but it wasn't until the start of the 2019 school year where I truly embraced it. It has made my job easier, tremendously easier. My students come to me about problems and conflicts before I have to go to them, before I even notice the problem. Where did all of this stem from? My father was the devil, I knew. So I began to use lying as a defensive strategy to survive. It was an easy choice. Lie. I wish I didn't have to. I wish my father wasn't like that. I wish we had a different relationship where I didn't have to lie. In my late teens, I promised myself that, unless my life depends on it, I'll never lie again, and to let the receiver of the truth deal with the truth that I give them. As a teacher, if you are a parent now, I sincerely believe that if your child can't trust you, that you have lost them. Whatever relationship you have with them is not complete, and you are more than likely sabotaging and setting terrible examples for their future. I've tried to talk to my older brother about this, but he's like pig-headedly against it. He doesn't let his kids date around, is insanely strict with even minor things, forces his kids into extremely time-consuming extracurriculars when they are not interested, etc. He's mentioned to me that it worries him that his oldest has been beginning to lie to them more, but that at least she's really bad at it, so I can always catch her, and I'm over here thinking don't worry, she's going to get much better really quickly. When I was in college I knew so many crazy partiers, immature kids whose parents thought they were perfect angels who didn't drink and got to bed at 10 every night. I knew a girl in high school who got in a drunk driving accident. It was only a few miles to get home from the party, but she didn't ask her parents for a ride because they were extremely religiously conservative, thought she was a perfect angel, and would have sent her to live with relatives in another country if they found out she drank alcohol. Overly strict parenting breeds overly sneaky kids. This is so true. The tighter the leash, the farther the dog runs when it manages to break free. Be reasonable please. What you're about to throw a tantrum over probably is going to do more harm than good. Coming from someone with strict Asian parents who will yell for over 2 hours over a tiny mistake, use anything we say against us, and then wonder why we never tell them anything. Tiger moms raise the best liars. And holy crap, how did my mom yell for so many hours in a row without ever needing to take a breath or a drink of water? I'd swear she wasn't even human. Just an angry hurricane wrapped in skin. Having grown up in an Asian household myself, I'm so surprised that I've learned to pick and choose my battles about things with the people around me, especially my wife. However, I'm not surprised that my parents know nothing about me, what's going on in my life, and that I keep them at quadruple the arm's distance. And they still wonder why I don't tell them anything. I do have to thank them for making me make myself an extremely capable, independent, self-sufficient human being, and only because they taught me nothing a child deserves to learn. I feel like this kind of tiger parenting is a huge reason why, broadly speaking, shyness and passivity is so common among Asian kids raised in Western societies, particularly Asian boys. Often they are too hesitant to voice their opinions in public because they've been trained since childhood not to question authority figures and avoid conflict, so acting contrarian or bohemian in defense of what you believe in feels very unnatural. I know too many people raised in strict, and I mean strict, Asian households who spent their adult lives dealing with mental and confidence issues due to the psychological impact of having to live so defensively for the first 20 odd years of their lives. There are some benefits to be had with living by Confucian ethics, but filial piety, edit, which demands unyielding obedience towards your parents/elders, is certainly not one of them. Especially when you live in a society that prizes self-sufficiency and individualism, you end up, quite ironically, sticking out like a sore thumb. Yep, I was raised strict Mormon, and would have to tell my group of friends what we did over the weekend before we would ever get back to my house, so if my mom asked about anything all our stories would be the same. Pretty friggin' silly. Raised Mormon here too. I had to lie constantly just to survive, and my parents would be upset constantly over the craziest things, like wearing tank tops or even having friends who wore tank tops. That's exactly what I'm going through right now. Raised Mormon, recently moved back home because of the virus. I have to constantly lie about what kind of people my friends and I are. Getting screamed at for an hour as an 8-year-old for wanting to go to a sleepover for my friend's birthday party. Almost getting the cops called because I was at swim practice for 30 minutes later than usual when I was 14. Almost getting an Amber Alert filed because you went to a movie that took a bit longer than expected and you weren't answering your phone at 16. Still being forced to keep a tracker on your phone at 18. Even though you left the house twice a month before quarantine. Yeah, that'll turn you into an efficient and compulsive liar. Even when I'm not doing anything remotely wrong, I'm always thinking of a possible excuse that sounds like it better fits the perfect image my parents expect and have expected of me my whole life, even when I'm unlikely to face questioning. That being said, I've learned the best way to lie convincingly about a situation is to include details and anecdotes. I took a walk to the park with my friends, but as far as my parents were told, I stayed at my friend's house. Her mom got us pizza, and there was a dispute over toppings that took 30 minutes. Details are everything, man. Comment and subscribe.